in the liberal echo chamber, what you hear is that anyone who supports Trump is a racist, any sort of phobe that you can imagine, or they're Nazis, or all these things. And what I discovered is that they're just normal people who I happen to disagree with somewhat politically.
You've been a Democratic Party member for 20 years, as I understand it.
Yep, up until about a week and a half ago.
Until about a week and a half ago, and then you became independent.
Yes.
But you ended up at CPAC.
I did.
And so you didn't have this radical transformation to conservatism or something like that. Why are you here?
No, well, I was here because after my article came out, I had all these conversations and everyone was saying, you have to go to CPAC, you have to go to CPAC. And so the way I came down on it was, if someone gives me a ticket to CPAC, I will go to CPAC. And lo and behold, you ask and you shall receive. And so I thought, well, why not? It's just another experience in this journey.
Very, very interesting. So you're in the knitting community.
Yes, in real life.
Yeah, and it's a very, I had no idea until earlier this year that there's this very vibrant knitting community in the world, and in America, never mind the world. And you've been an active part of that. And this article that you reference, you had some experiences. Why don't you tell me a bit about your experience?
Yeah, so my experience in the knitting community was mostly on Instagram, where people share pictures of their yarn and all their beautiful projects. But about a year ago, social justice started becoming a real conversation in that community. And what happened was, I've called them roving gangs of social justice warriors, started really picking apart everything that really well-known designers and knitters said to kind of get you those gotcha moments. So it started when a woman named Karen Templar wrote a blog post about going to India, and she was so excited about going to India, and it was like going to a foreign country, and no, that's not okay to say that. So she had to issue this dramatic public apology pointing out everything that was wrong with her blog post. And then following that, a woman named Maria Tuscan, who's just this beautiful yarn dyer, she basically just made a video saying, I'm not going to be on Instagram because I'm not comfortable with the bullying. Well, they attacked her and mobbed her and bullied her so badly. I mean, it was just absolutely horrible to watch, and they've since actually started to go after her again. But the thing that really got my attention was this guy, sockmatician, Nathan Taylor. He started a hashtag called Diverse Knitty, and when all of this was going on, all he did was post a poem asking for kindness. And he was mobbed and bullied so badly that he ended up having a nervous breakdown and went into the hospital on suicide watch. And at that point, I was like, this is not okay. And when I started really looking at it, I realized these are people I had aligned myself politically with, and I was not okay with their behavior.
And this is the knitting community.
Yes.
So, perhaps a microcosm of greater society, is that how you imagine it? Or
I think so. I think we've seen instances like this happen in lots of different communities. I mean, think about young adult fiction, or think about Gamergate. And I think what sets the knitting community apart right now is there is a group of us that's actively pushing back on this and saying, no, you've gone too far, enough is enough.
So what is it, first of all, that so you're questioning your political orientation somehow?
Well, I think what I started to realize in all of this is that the values of my party had changed dramatically from the values that I held and what made me join the party 20 years ago. And it was a little bit of a waking up process to realize that they were not the defender of free speech anymore. In fact, they were trying to control speech and control different liberties. And from there, it was just a matter of really coming to grips with the fact that I didn't necessarily leave my party left me. Interesting.
But this doesn't mean that you're suddenly this big MAGA person or something like that. That's what was also very interesting about what I read. You're basically just kind of trying to rationally rethink your politics, I guess, right?
I think so, and I think in the intervening years since I became a Democrat, I started my own business. I run basically 2 businesses, and I think when you build something yourself, and it makes you have a different perspective on things, and particularly, after my article came out, when the left came after me and tried to destroy my business, I'm like, I don't want these people anywhere near running the government. This is crazy.
What are your politics now? Do you know? Is there a way to articulate that?
Oh, I think I have core values that I believe in. Freedom of speech is probably my #1 core value that I believe in.
We share that.
I'm a big fan of freedom of speech, and I think I do have some more liberal politics. I am pro-choice within limits. I do think abortion should be, to use the catchphrase, safe, legal, and rare. I do believe that we should try to find a way to provide health care to more people, that people shouldn't go bankrupt if they get sick. But all of these things necessitate us actually being able to have conversations with one another and stop, being in these tribes where we're just on the political extreme, like shouting and throwing things. That's not going to get anything done. When
I read your article, I did get that sense that you were your tone was one of dialogue is extremely important. If we're gonna, and it was kind of the cancel culture that you were rallying against more than anything.
I think that that's true. Cancel culture, I think, is just a horrent thing that is happening right now. And for me, what I've taught for years and years with my business clients is it's all about compromise. What are you going to give up to get a little bit more in return? And I think the same is true of the broader reality that we find ourselves in. Is we should be looking for ways to compromise and find those common ground. And if we fundamentally view each other as the enemy, we're never going to get anywhere.
So, you went to a Trump rally. This is one of the reasons I think your article is so popular. And what you said you saw was different than what you'd been hearing. I guess that's that was the message.
Yeah, well, I mean, to back up a little bit, when the stuff happened in the knitting community and I started to question everything, I started making a proactive effort to try to escape this liberal echo chamber that I had created for myself, because really I was only listening to very progressive voices. I had MSNBC on in my house all the time. All of my friends were liberal or progressive, and so it was literally all I heard. And I started making this effort to proactively listen to people who I thought I might disagree with. I started with Ben Shapiro because I thought he was Satan. I thought, what better place to start? And it turns out that he wasn't, and we just disagree on some things, and he's really smart and really funny. And from there, it was just kind of down the rabbit hole. And so, living in New Hampshire, I'm very lucky I get to see all the political candidates up close. It's super fun.
Right.
I'd seen all the Democratic candidates at one point or another, and then I discovered Trump was coming, and I thought, well, why not? This is like my big graduation, is to go to this Trump rally.
And what happened?
Yeah, so I mean, in the liberal echo chamber, what you hear is that anyone who supports Trump is a racist, any sort of phobe that you can imagine, or they're Nazis, or all these things. And what I discovered is that they're just normal people who I happen to disagree with somewhat politically, and they just want the best for the country, and they want their freedoms to be protected, and they want their families to be taken care of, and they have issues with cancel culture just like I do. And so seeing people that were supporting Trump in a new way really made me look at the whole situation differently.
What I've seen, and I actually have found this quite disturbing, and I'll say this, for the benefit of our viewers, is kind of the inverse of that, right? Is that I've seen basically conservative folks that have a very similar perception of people that have more left-wing politics, especially people that support the Democratic Party. I find that quite disturbing, because we don't want to dehumanize each other, right?
And that's part of what I still struggle with people on the right is, the calling of the names and, the libtard and all these things. And I'm like, that's just unnecessary, and it doesn't make me want to come and have a conversation with you.
So what does make you want to have a conversation?
I think, one of the things that it's also been eye-opening to me about this experience is just like a free exchange of ideas when no one's trying to demonize you or call you a bad name or make you feel bad about what you believe. I've had more invigorating conversations with people on the right in the past couple of weeks than I have had in years with people on the left. And I actually think that's really exciting. It's not fun to only have conversations with people who agree with you and want to give you a high five every time you say something. It's much more interesting to have debates and discussions about ideas and trying to find common ground, but then also being able to just say, okay, it's okay to agree to disagree. It's cool.
People write into us all the time, asking the question, how do I talk to someone that's of a different political persuasion? They don't want to hear it. They're judging me, but I actually want to communicate with them. I don't know how to do it. What's you're kind of bridging, you've been kind of trying to bridge this divide.
Yeah.
What do you have some advice? Do you have some thoughts about what to do?
I do.
Frankly, you know, I'm thinking in both directions, but we could start with, you know, for conservatives that want to talk to less conservatives.
You know, I think my advice actually does go in both directions, and I think you need to start by looking at yourself and say, am I really open to hearing what this person has to say? And making sure you're open to receiving it, because they say at the end of the day, communication is what the receiver hears, not necessarily what you say, it's what they take out of it. And so you have to get yourself into a place where you are primed to just receive what they say from a more detached perspective. If they disagree with you, it's not that you have to agree with them, and it's not that they're attacking you. You just have a disagreement, and you know, discuss the disagreement, discuss why you believe what you do. That's something I think has really gotten lost on the liberal side of the spectrum, or I shouldn't even say liberal, the progressive side of the spectrum, where they aren't good at articulating their arguments. They don't know why they believe what they believe. They just believe it because someone told them to, or because they always have. Whereas I see more on the conservative side, they're much better at articulating, here's why I believe what I believe. And I think that's really important.
Have you lost friends?
Oh, I've lost so many friends in this whole affair. But I mean, the reality is I've gotten so much positive feedback from it, and I've made a lot of new friends in the process that it's kind of evened out in some respects. But it is very sad. I wasn't surprised to lose friends, but it's disappointing to me the way it's played out. And I've also gotten so many messages from people who read my article and they were like, you gave me hope that I can rebuild these friendships again, or marriages where people were on two different sides of the political spectrum, like you gave me hope that I can rebuild this relationship with my husband or my wife. And that's been, it's legit. I mean, and I think that's been a really positive thing I think that's come out of it. And I think, you know, something I've heard over and over again from Trump supporters is, listen, we don't care who you vote for in November. We're just happy that you have an open mind and you're listening to us and you're not calling us horrible names in the process. And I thought that was really eye-opening, because on the other side, I mean, they're very adamant, you have to vote for my candidate or else you're a horrible person. But yeah, much more open-mindedness coming from Trump folks on that one.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. You know, it's a process to go through this transition from seeing other people as the enemy to seeing that, you know, you're just like me in some respects. And it is a painful process. I'll tell you, the evening of the Trump rally, after I left that rally, I actually was texting with a friend from my car saying, I actually have a headache right now. The cognitive dissonance is so bad. And so it is a very real, it's a mourning process. They have to let go of their reality to embrace a new one. And the only way to do that is that they have people around there to help them.
And again, the new reality, okay, and I just want to be clear here, the new reality isn't like MAGA, the new reality is these people aren't evil or something like that. Is that?
Yeah, it's that we're all on the same team, we're all Americans, we all should be just shooting for creating a better life for ourselves, and let's have robust discussions and debates on how to get there, that's fine. But you have to stop seeing your neighbor or your friends or your spouses as evil just because they disagree with you on how to get there.
This is something that's very important to me. Yeah. So I really, really appreciate having you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.